First point is genuine and committed leadership vision. Each word here is very important. The vision, it leads to, the point 4, having clear and ambitious goals, but it needs to start from the leadership team, and it needs to be genuine and committed. Genuine means that people need to believe what you're saying, both internally and externally through your customers, for instance. And it needs to be committed. It needs to be seen as a commitment, a long-term commitment, but also something that you're going to practice on a daily basis in your conversation with all your staff, in your conversations with your customers as well. So this is from a leadership point of view, this is the key element. The best way then to do that is really to integrate that plan that Paul is going to talk about into every dimension of your organization, in your business strategy, in your business practices. And Paul will have a lot of that in his presentation. The third point, which I believe is probably one of the most critical and the one that organizations miss most of the time, is to engage their workforce, not keep that objective and that leadership or that vision at top level and try to drive it through just the leadership team or through a small group of people. It needs to engage all your teams, everybody in your organizations. The next step, of course, is to train them. It's just talking to them about their vision or your vision about what you want to do. You need also to give them the right tools to be able to achieve that. And the next thing is to empower them. So to set clear guidelines, unleash their creativity and their power. They are the ones who on a daily basis are going to lead to talk with your suppliers. Are you going to talk to your customers in particular? Are you going to make the decisions every day about how you design new buildings, new houses, new offices, etc.? So I mentioned, of course, clear and ambitious goals. Don't have, small goals. Be ambitious. You'll achieve far more than if you have a small goal and then overachieve it. Of course, once you've set a goal, you need to set metrics, and that's probably going to be one of the toughest dimensions in regards to your industry, and we'll come back to that in a minute. Once you have that, it's about, of course, reporting it regularly, internally and externally, and that's back to that genuine leadership. You need to be honest with the way you report, clearly indicate where you're on track, where you're not on track, and what you're doing about it, and you need to be authentic communication. If you have a PR team or a marketing team, don't let them just take control without having somebody who is really checking on the achievements and how they are reported. Check that information that you communicate is going to be authentic. There's nothing worse than giving some greenwashing or inaccurate facts to destroy your reputation immediately. So it's a very important point there on how you communicate. And if you do that, then it will ensure that you've got a really great cultural and goal alignment with your teams. It will allow us potentially to readjust the brand positioning that you have in the market. In particular, very importantly, it will allow you to attract the talent that you'll need for the future, because word of mouth will go around and the people will want to work in your organization if you do it well and you see that you're genuine and committed to it. As I mentioned, your teams their creativity will be unleashed, and that will give you much better results. So in regards to, if we look at that, all the previous points are true whether you're a manufacturer or whether you're a practice like yours. But just a couple of points I want to highlight in regards to the industry and the role you play in that industry as a service provider and a specifier. Your main power is the power of influence. The individual footprints of each of the practices is fairly small and can be adjusted very quickly. But you've got a massive power of influence, just in the same way as Interface had. It was a small organization. Its main impact that it's had in the last 25 years or more was through the power of influence. So in regards to your customers, engage them and stretch their climate action ambition. Some of your customers are already on the way and you don't have to convince them of the urgency of climate action. Some are actually not at all on that path yet. And for them, you need to find what is important for them, for their benefit. If it's not climate action, how can you bring them onto the climate action path on dimensions that are important to them. So speak their language. In regards to suppliers, this is where you have a huge power of influence as well. So be demanding and stretch the innovative power of your suppliers. Don't wait for them to come with their marketing spiel about how good their product is on one dimension or another. You would have set in that action plan very clear metrics and objective and dates. Let them know what you need and by when. And be very specific about that and lead that conversation. Don't wait for them to lead the conversation for you. In regards to metric, it is clear that on climate action, the key dimension is whole life carbon footprint. So be very clear with your suppliers about what you want to see in regards to embodied carbon, in regard to operational emissions, carbon footprints, as well as the end-of-life solution that they have to offer. There's a lot of other parameters in regards to materials and other things, but in regards to climate action, whole life carbon footprint is the dimension. To close on this, I just want to again highlight that success will come from demonstration of genuine leadership and continuous genuine leadership, as well as unleashing that innovation of your power through their empowerment. Next. So Caroline said, I'm now working as an independent advisor. Here are my details. They'll be available on the slides. If any of you want to contact me to have further conversation about that, I'm happy to do so. Paul, up to you to give us the plan.
Thank you, Michael. Okay, so I'm getting an echo from somebody. Michael, maybe you, Caroline, maybe you. Okay. Sustainability action plans. From here on in, it's going to be relatively dry. Lots of words, not lots of pretty pictures. I'm afraid I don't have any superhero graphics. This next piece is the template. Okay, this is going to be available on the Architects Declare website in the not too distant future. So I'll go through it relatively quickly, giving everybody an overview of what's on offer. And then I'll take you through the Fitzpatrick and Partners one that we've prepared on the back of doing the work on the Sustainability Action Plan template for Architects Declare. I want to start by acknowledging the Guringai and Durag people, the traditional owners of the land on which I am on today, not the Gadigal people who are the traditional owners of where I should have been in the office today in Sydney, or the studio. I'll get in trouble from James for calling it an office. In the spirit of reconciliation, Fitzpatrick and Partners acknowledges the traditional custodians of the country throughout Australia and their connections to the land, sea and community. We pay our respects to their elders past and present and extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today. I also want to acknowledge a couple of people who helped in preparing this template, in particular Caroline, who's been a good driving force behind all these things, as I'm sure most people are becoming aware. And Rosie Adams Schiminger from Fender Castellides, who helped put this together as well. There's a lot of people to thank from Fitzpatrick and Partners, so I'll skip that and just thank everybody in helping put together our own sustainability action plan. This template is based on the AIA 2030 challenge template in large part, and I think that's a lesson for everybody in preparing your own templates. See what's out there. There's an awful lot of information available. Google probably isn't your friend, but Google is your friend in this regard. The other thing that we've used as a base is to inform the template is the Reconciliation Action Plan template from Reconciliation Australia, in particular when we start to talk about framework, and I'll touch on that again later. So I'm going to go through the principles, the purpose, the framework for the templates, engaging your firm, and then creating your sustainability action plan. This next piece is going to give you probably more questions than it's going to give you answers, but hopefully they're the right questions and hopefully they take you on the right path. So as signatories to Australian Architects Declare, you have all already committed to 11 principles. Fundamentally, advocating for change, raising awareness of the climate and biodiversity emergencies, advocating for change towards regenerative design practices and principles, taking on board the idea of setting these principles as key measures of success for our industry, both internally within your own studios and externally as part of awards, prizes, listings, etc. We've also all acknowledged that we're going to share our information, and that's what today's about, and the push hopefully over the next year will be about sharing knowledge. I really want to emphasize that you shouldn't wait on knowledge leaders purely to share. We should all be sharing as much as we possibly can, because it's how we're going to grow on our collective power. And that's true also for collaboration. We should collaborate with engineers, contractors, etc., as much as we possibly can. We all need to educate ourselves, as Michael talked about carbon, whole life carbon, embodied carbon, operating carbon. We need to be much more proficient as an industry in our understanding of where we're using it, whether it's existing buildings, whether it's whole life carbon modeling and post-occupancy evaluation. We just need to become much more literate in embodied carbon and in carbon in general, and how to deal with it, how we are utilizing it day in, day out. We need to do all of this quickly. Our work is slow. It takes time to build the buildings that we build. 2030 is less than 9 years away. That's crazy. We have to act now, and we have to act decisively. So we're all here. That's good. We more than 1,000 of us have signed up as signatories. That's good. And we're all going to start to create our sustainability action plans. That's fantastic. So what is it? Now what? Well, a sustainability action plan basically is a plan to succeed sustainably. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And you can't manage what you don't measure. So as signatories, we are aiming on getting everybody to have developed a sustainability action plan by the end of the year. We want you to put them on your website. We want our version, as you'll see when you go to Fitzpatrick and Partners after this presentation, as I'm sure you will. Our version's on our website. You can download it. You can scrutinize it. You can comment on it. You can come back to us and tell us what we've done wrong. That's fine. We need to be open. We need to share. So by the end of the year, we're going to have a collective group of sustainability action plans. Now, really importantly, they're not a dead document. It's the start. It's a process of you thinking about strategically and methodically, I knew I was going to get that word wrong, how the 11 principles of Architects Declaration that you've all signed up to are going to be integrated into the way you practice, into your portfolio of buildings. So we're going to elevate the conversation. A sustainability action plan needs to be a firm-wide strategy. This is a real opportunity for you to stand back and understand who your business is. Make your plan bold, as Michael said. Make it actionable. Make it comprehensive. It should cover everything. But break it down. Break it into specific goals, values, practices. Break it down project by project. Break it into bite-sized chunks so that you can make something tangible, so that you can actually move along as you go. It's not a set and forget document. If you look at a lot of the 2030 challenge sustainability action plans that are available online, you'll find that they're dated 2012 or 2014 or 2016. They feel like set and forget documents. Now, hopefully that's not true and they just haven't been updated online. But please, this has got to be the start of your practice, not the end. This isn't the solution. This is just the next step. So review those documents, find out what everybody else is doing, get yourself set. And when you are, then we're going to look at the framework, engaging your firm, and creating the SAP. So when we talk about the framework, and this is where we've drawn on Reconciliation Australia's framework, we've got 4 levels of sustainability action plan that we're proposing. And simply put, that's because we all agree with the 11 principles, but we're all starting at different points. So some people agree with the principles and they'll be in the review category. They agree with the principles, but their practice isn't consistent. They're not meeting those goals. You've got a very different set of tasks than somebody who's right up the top of the food chain, in terms of sustainability and is regenerative in their practice. But to go through them, if your firm, if this sounds like you, then this is what you need to be doing for your sustainability action plan. If you're a firm who signed on to the Architects Declare Pledge, but your practices aren't consistent with the goals of the movement, then you need to clearly articulate how you're going to change your business. You need to define the propositions that are going to allow the Architects Declare principles to inform your business. The next step on from there is what we've called the Extend SAP. So that's a firm whose business operations and projects consistently align with the majority of the Architects Declare principles, but who don't really have a formalized process of how they capture all of that and how it works. Your SAP should celebrate your successes, but it should give you a clear path to how you can more holistically act across your entire business to make your sustainability, your vision of sustainability, and it should align to your business, your vision of sustainability, and how that aligns with the Architects Declare principles, and how you can use that to inform yourself to move forward. Then the final two, amplify. If you're a firm well-versed in sustainability and a leader in the field in terms of your projects and your advocacy, then maybe your sustainability action plan should focus on innovation and how your actions can be amplified further and grow this community of people interested in the planet. And finally, regenerative SAP. I might ask Carolyn to talk in a second about what a regenerative SAP might look like and how it's different to a sustainability action plan. It's really a sustainability action plan on steroids. But if you're a firm who's already right at the top of the food chain, as I said before, in sustainability and a leader in terms of your actions, in terms of Architects Declare, then your SAP will do different things. It'll create connections beyond in terms of advocacy with collaborators in government. It should aim to be a regenerative practice, or you should aim to be a regenerative practice, I should say. Carolyn, did you want to add anything about regeneration action plans or recaps?
Look, I think regenerative architecture or regenerative design is really more about deeply understanding the systems within your working and realizing their potential. I think there's so many similarities with designing up with country that we in Australia are very fortunate to have, you know, have such excellent examples. It's a work in progress, and I'll put some links up onto the website about where you can find out more about regenerative design.
Awesome. So then the next step, or the starting point, if you like, is engaging your firm. And I would suggest that while, as Michael said, it's got to be the power of your broader group of people, I'd start by finding those in-house champions who are going to help drive and establish your sustainability action plan in the first place, and then roll that out to your entire team. Certainly that's been our process at Fitzpatrick Partners, and it's worked pretty well. Review what your peers and competitors are doing, both here and overseas. Have a look at our sustainability action plan, but look at others as well. By all means, look at others. There's an awful lot of them online. Find the things you want to emulate, the things you want to improve on. Then stand back and look at your own business. How is sustainability integrated into the values and goals, the very top line elements of your business, what your vision for your practice is? How does that support the Architects Declare principles? Then look at design. Design is obviously key to what we do. How do you do it now? What are your current processes? How sustainable are they? And how do they need to shift to better face the challenge that we all have in front of us? What are your design standards? What are the benchmarks? What becomes the building that you accept as your lowest bar, and the building that you aim for, or urban environment that you aim for, as your highest bar? Where are you going and how are you getting there? What are the principles and frameworks that you'll judge success against? So what are those benchmarks? What do you consider to be enough? And how do you deal with that? How's sustainability structured within your practice? Currently, what does it look like? Is it ad hoc? Is it very deliberate? Is it reviewable? Is it actionable? I'm a big fan personally of keeping it simple, but you've got to make it that keeping it simple is a strength, not a weakness. And then what are the challenges to implementing your goals? And everybody's challenges are going to be different. It might be the type of work that you do. It might be who your clients are. It might be the level of education of everybody who works in your firm. Tackle them honestly, tackle them straight up, and start moving forward. So, creating your sustainability action plan. And sorry, this is getting very wordy. What does it look like? Well, first and foremost, it should be your vision. Personalize it. Make it about your practice. How are the 11 principles going to change the way that you work, or how are you integrating them more completely across your firm? Connect your business to sustainability in a very deliberate fashion. How will you advocate your message? Who are you talking to? Are you talking to just your staff? Are you talking to your clients? Are you talking more broadly to this community, or more broadly again to the entire community in Australia? And what does your pathway to regenerative design look like? Be honest with where you're starting. That's okay. What are you doing right? What are your successes now? And what are your successes into the future? And all of these things need to be actionable in terms of timeframes. So what are you going to be able to achieve in 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years? Set those goals. And as Michael said, be bold with your vision. Even if you come up short on it, you'll go an awful lot further than if you try and exceed more on a lame vision. So design and approach. This is the majority of what we do, right? This is our big piece. As architects, what will change in your detail? What will change in your design? How are you going to connect the 11 principles of Architects Declare to your projects, to your day-to-day work? Identify the Aboriginal country your projects are on. Learn from it. Learn from the culture and heritage of the project, the site that the project's on. What are the processes that you're going to use to grow your knowledge? I think in looking at this both from a Architects Declare point of view and from a Fitzpatrick and Partners point of view, knowledge, and in particular knowledge of carbon, is going to become one of the big challenges we're all going to have to go on a bit of a learning curve to grow our knowledge of. Well, what are the certifications that you're going to use to define your work? What do you already use? Neighbours, Basics, Green Star, Living Building Challenge, whatever it might be. How do they connect into the 11 principles, and how do you synthesize all of that into a direction for your business? And what does regenerative design principles mean in the way that you work, or in the scale of work that you deal with? What measurements will you use to define success and to move forward? Then evaluation and reporting. How much do you know, really, like honestly, about your own work? What's your total energy output of your projects? What's the embodied carbon footprint of your current suite of projects? How does your portfolio work relative to the zero carbon 2030 goals or the Architects Declare principles? I suspect a lot of you are going to be in the same position as we are, which is don't really know. Got to go looking at it. Got to find out more information. You can't manage what you can't measure. So that then takes you to what are your firm's goals and targets for regenerative design? And moving forward from that, how do you compare? How do you compare to other firms? How do you set the goals for your new projects relative to your old projects? We've all got to grow our knowledge base quite a lot. Then, what is your outreach? Sorry, I'll go back one. I wanted to make a statement in terms of targets and methods. There's no dumb questions. Your ego carries very little carbon, so ignore it and focus on the things that are important. In moving forward, an awful lot of what we have all understood our role to be needs to shift, and it needs to shift in a quite dramatic way, quite quickly. So get out there and understand, ask the dumb questions, ask your engineering colleagues, ask your peers in industry. If you don't know, ask. If you do know, share. So when you do know, share. That's outreach and advocacy right there. How are you going to advocate? To whom are you going to advocate? Your staff, your clients, more broadly into the community. As I said before, training and education, I think, is going to be a huge piece for every firm, but bite-sized chunks. And Architects Declare is also seeking to try and run some trial programs to try and improve our knowledge on this. we all need to start talking together and joining all of the dots together in terms of education more broadly. It shouldn't be one firm against another firm as a point of difference. Your knowledge should be everybody's knowledge. Otherwise, we're not going to get to where we all need to get to. And the final one in there is about operations and outlook. And hopefully, as we did last year, an awful lot of firms went and examined their own carbon footprint, offset their own carbon footprint, changed their electricity providers, and did a whole series of other things. There's a lot that can be done in that space. And as Michael said, it is relatively quick to do. It's the small stuff relative to the amount of impact we can have through our projects, but it's really quite important. You've got to make sure your own house is in order first. So that's where we got to with the template. That's Sustainability Action Plans 101. I'm hoping that I've asked more questions and rather than provided a whole load of answers for people. But maybe a way of expressing how that might work is to show you Fitzpatrick Partners Sustainability Action Plan. So this went live on our website yesterday. We've shared it both with our leadership team in a whole series of iterations and out to our entire staff, and we'll now be running more workshops on that. It's developed into a small working group that is going to action a lot of these things, but it's a firm-wide commitment. And importantly, you can see there it says July 2021. This is a live document. This document will change and will be updated as we go. So what does it do? Our version, this in theory should be a reread of everything that I've just read. Our version talks a little bit about who we are, or where we are, the land on which we are. So the land of the Gadigal people acknowledges them, acknowledges the challenge we have in front of us and the impact of our buildings, and then states our commitment. And while our commitment is across those 11 principles from Architects Declare, our real focus is on carbon and on creating a zero net carbon by 2030 on all of our projects. That's the goal, as it were. So we go from there to a vision where we talk about carbon positive buildings. And this is where we get towards regenerative, and we are by no means there, but we're aiming at it and we're trying to be clear-eyed about how we get there. So the question would be, will we as an industry continue to ignore the environmental, cultural, social and economic impacts of our work, or will we strive to do better than yesterday and be part of the solution for the planet? We choose the planet. We then have the framework. So we've got the 11 guiding principles and we've got the 4 different levels of sustainability action plan. We placed ourselves in Extend. So as I said before, an Extend firm is a firm whose business operations and projects consistently align with the majority of the Architects Declare principles, but who do not have a formalized approach that captures all aspects of their business. We're hoping that this sustainability action plan is our first step on having that formalized approach, and hopefully we can, there's a gaming term for it, won't come to me. Anyway, hopefully we can get on and be an amplifying SEP the next time we publish it. We talk a little bit here about regenerative design, what it is, and this is largely a document aimed internally to our people, but also to our clients. We talk about life cycle assessment, whole of life carbon modeling, trying to get knowledge growing on where the tools are, what the tools are. We're experimenting with lots of stuff across the practice at the moment, and looking at how that integrates with some of the tools that we do use regularly on projects, Neighbours, Green Star, as well. And some of the ones that we hope to use, Living Building Challenge, Passive House maybe, and Zero Carbon 2030, and trying to there's an awful lot of information out there and it can be quite intimidating how much is out there. You can only eat an elephant one bite at a time, so just start chewing. We talk a little bit about the impact of our buildings, and here we frame it around energy, water, habitat, and healthy buildings. We put metrics in relation to those. We then set ourselves some targets. So these are 2030 performance targets for our business. We want to reduce the operating carbon in our buildings to zero. And obviously a lot of that will be offset, but a lot of it will be in efficient building. We want to reduce our embodied carbon by 40%. And then the remaining of those around water, habitat, healthy buildings have all been drawn from the RIBA 2030 challenge. And the more we know, the more we'll change on those, and hopefully the better we'll make them. One of the ones we do know is around bird life and minimizing harm on bird life with glazing. And we can all do better to be more open about the way our buildings work, not just for the inhabitants, but for everything else around them. We've tried to tabulate that into a program, and for anybody who looks at programs quite often, you'll recognize this. That's a cliff, and that's kind of alarming that it's a cliff, but it's a fact. So the scale on this graph goes from 2020 to 2030, and the majority of things we want to get going in 2020, 21, and 22. Some of them we've already succeeded on and already been successful. Things like identify and acknowledge Aboriginal country on each of our projects. That's really straightforward. Everybody can do that. You can research it, and the knowledge you gain by growing it, by adding it to your projects, grows your knowledge of your project. We've also at F&P engaged with Indigenous enterprise to promote capacity building in Indigenous businesses through our supply chain. And we've identified the extensive reuse for each of our projects. So they're things that we've done that are in the short term. Some of the things that are more out there in the long term, research and identify potential methods to achieve carbon positive buildings. Obviously, that's an ongoing thing, but we've stuck it out there at 2025. And then we want to implement that by 2030. So it's a bold set of plans, and there's lots of different pieces to it. We then take a look at our current practice. As most people will know, we're pretty passionate at F&P about timber. And then we've also shown on the bottom left-hand side there the performance of some of our buildings relative to Green Star and neighbours. A piece of work that we're doing now is converting that into operating carbon and embodied carbon, hopefully, certainly across our projects moving forward, and potentially even across some of our back catalogue of projects, so we can set a benchmark. So the framework, we've defined the 11 Architects Declare principles, our current practice, and how we can do better. That's effectively a one-pager, which then breaks down into a series of different actions around design and approach, around evaluation and reporting, and around outreach and advocacy. Training and education, and as I said, I think education is going to be a huge one for all of us in terms of our knowledge around carbon and the metrics. You don't have to do it on your own. You work with very intelligent engineers, cost consultants, etc., builders, clients. You can utilize everybody else's skills to grow the pool of knowledge. And finally, then operations and outlook. So when we moved into our new studio last September, we switched our electricity provider. The year before, we had done the audit, and our electricity was 43% of our total. So we immediately switched to carbon offsetting or buying green power for that 43% of our total carbon. So that's a good win straight away. And we're hunting for ways to best utilize or best place our offset. And we're working with Property Industry Foundation at the moment on a building in Sydney, and we're seeking to add solar panels to the roof of that as part of our own commitment and how we're going to impact our own operations in the real world in Sydney and make it meaningful and local. So our sustainability action plan finishes with a single pager, if you like, of who we are, what we promote, what we accomplished so far, what we're working towards, and how we'll build a sustainable future. We believe that it is our responsibility to provide ethical, thoughtful, environmentally sensitive, and well-designed buildings for the benefit of our clients, our community, and our planet. I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't say, come and join us at Fitzpatrick Partners. But that's us. I will stop sharing for a second. And where are we at with time? I ignored time altogether. 10 to 2. That's awesome.
Now, can I just jump in, because I've been cut out of the chat, so I can't post anything or see any chat. But
oh dear.
Because I do have a link to a website with a whole lot of publicly accessible sustainability action plans. They are UK architects, but hopefully we'll develop our own page soon with such a thing.
Can we host those on the Architects Declare website, Carla?
Maybe I'll get that put up there as well. Yep. Okay, I'll do that. Yep.
Awesome. Well, was there any questions anybody wanted to look at in the chat? Are we aware of other architecture studios who have publicly available SAP? Carolyn's just answered that.
Yeah.
Is the recording going to be sent out? Yes, hopefully, as long as I don't bugger it up when I press save. The recording will be uploaded to the website. Talina will share SAP examples on the AAD website. Awesome.
I'm getting that organized, but I think what I'll do is after this talk, get a whole bunch of things and upload them to the website. So
awesome. Now, Paul, how much work was involved in preparing your SAP? How long did it take? And how many staff members were involved? It was very fits and starts, to be honest. We started into it last September when we had some available time. There was in total, I think, probably about 4 or 5 people involved, but it, as I said, very much fits and start. I reckon it probably needs to be that way because it's not a very linear process. You need to do it, go away, think about it, revise it, engage with your team, etc. It'll take you, if you get going now, you'll get it done by Christmas. But the best time to do a sustainability action plan was when you first set up practice. The second best time is right now. So,
and what we'd like to do is when you've done them is to link from our website to where your name is. We'll be able to get a link from there to your sustainability action plan.
Somebody said we've started. It's a mammoth undertaking for a small studio. Carolyn, did you want to comment on that?
I think you can go into it at all sorts of levels of depth, and at the very least just start thinking about it and yes, it's a big undertaking, but it's like a business plan, except that it's got a sustainability lens, and everyone really should have a business plan. So just keep working at it. And I think what we might do is even I think the small practice network might need to do something on sustainability action plans. And I also think what would be really good is for you to get together with other small practices and collaborate together on how you're going about it. Because I think whilst a large practice might have a whole bunch of people, I think that small practices can easily collaborate and share that load and maybe divvy up some of the tasks to help each other.
And I think it's beholden on everybody that when you get one, and I mean, ours is by no means perfect, don't get me wrong. So when you get your sustainability action plan done, make it public. Let everybody share it. And then learn from each other's, review your own and learn from the others.
Yep.
Paul Warland has said, biggest challenges, ? Clients, ? Sometimes I have to say we're pretty lucky with the clients that we have. Sometimes your clients, sometimes the type of work that you work on, we've chosen to stay working in the same sectors that we've always worked on. We're a practice that deals in commercial, healthcare, hotels and education primarily, and we want to stay working on those typologies, and we don't see any conflict between that and the commitments that we've made to Architects Declare. So it's possible, but it is you need to find your path.
That might also be another topic for another lunch and learn, is to sort of successful strategies for bringing your clients along, or conversations to be had with them to help them see the advantage of not creating any white elephants, but to create the buildings of the future.
I'm seeing a number of people post about most sustainable materials and trying to generate their own lists of same. I would say that we've tried that, and we're realizing that there's an awful lot of suppliers in the market and specification people as well who are way ahead of us and way ahead of the power of an individual organization in developing that. So it might be worth trying to plug into some of those.
I think there's a group called MECLA, which is, I can't think what the MECLA, it's a New South Wales government and Lend-Lease and World WWF initiative looking at engaging with suppliers to reduce the carbon of the embodied carbon of their materials. So that's happening. That's really exciting. And then there's groups like BPI who are putting together their whole database with the ability to search depending on what you're trying to achieve. So I think that rather than trying to create your own database, you just need to hook into those other ones, and also just realize that a lot of this, I mean, after you choose non-toxic materials and materials that have been sustainably harvested and processed, you've then got to actually apply the right materials for the right job in the right place.
So somebody's asked, Renee's asked, has anyone used the EPIC database from the University of Melbourne? Yes, we have. We're looking at that, particularly when it comes to embodied carbon on structural materials. At the moment, it's very complex. There's a lot of data in there, but defining a good data set is going to be one of the things that whoever cracks that is going to be a hero. And I think that EPIC database is quite a good start. I think our next talk is going to be on embodied carbon, Caroline. So I suspect a lot of these questions will come up there as well.
Yeah.
Somebody has asked, Paul, was there a detailed sustainability plan for projects as well on how will you be actioning with sustainability perspectives to track down the line? Great question. That's one of the actions that we as a working group within Fitzpatrick Partners are going to do. Sue Winternoon asked Michael Gabadou, do you have a SAP for Gaia Consulting on your website?
No, because my role is more about advising people rather than so I work with organization and help them develop their own plan. That's the focus. There's no set roadmap. As you said, Paul, you've developed one for your organization, and of course for all the firms in the same industry, there'll be a lot of parallels and a lot of similar dimensions, but there'll be differences in each one of them. And
that's why Sue asked.
Yeah, they need to. So yeah.
I've just got news that the template is now on the website, on the Architects Declare website. It's under news. We might move it to resources, but at the moment it's under. So if you go to the Architects Declare, there's a menu up in the top left-hand corner, and when you pull that down, if you go to news, you'll find the template there.
Caroline, this one is for you. Well, I'm going to post it to you anyway. Is it an idea to work with one of the universities to put together a postgrad course on sustainability that practitioners could undertake? I think you've been having conversations with a couple of universities, Caroline.
I've been having conversations. We're going to do a very small little test run with some of the universities to get some of their students to help work with a few practices to do some testing on embodied energy, just to kind of see how those tools work and how we can connect students with practices, and whether that becomes part of their course or whether it becomes an intern kind of arrangement. That's all part of the little test case that we're about to undergo. But doing some further, there's lots of courses around on sustainability, and I'm sure the universities, and I'll talk with them as well about, I'm not sure whether they're able to extend their courses to not students, but I reckon in this age and this day that people are looking for all sorts of opportunities. So I will put that on my list of things to do. But
and Lucia Wellington has asked, do you need practices to be part of this test run?
We want 5 practices. So again, email me and I'll. We need to get the whole thing to work. We need a set scale, and I think we were thinking of like simple office buildings or small school buildings as a scale, just so that we can compare apples with apples rather than, yeah. So email me and I'll see. But as I say, email me. Also email me if you want to help me pull all of this together, because I can't do it all on my own.
Absolutely. All right, well, it looks like that's the end of the questions on the chat. Thank you both. That's been good.
Well, thank you. And thank you for testing it, because I think it's a brave thing to put that out there and then to put it up on your website. And well done you. And thanks, Michael, for, Interface has been such a leader in sort of thinking outside the square of how you can, and the importance of bringing sustainable thinking to what you do. And I think that's what architects are good at doing. We're creative thinkers. We are, you know, and we can create the future that we need. And that's kind of the agency and the power that we have, much more than so many others. So this is about really stepping up and just kind of using your agency for the good of the world, because it's just so critical that we do that right now.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Caroline. Thank you, Paul.
The recording. If you don't see the recording, it's because I buggered it up. All right.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks
Bye.
a lot.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.